Good evening. Good evening and welcome to the February meeting of the Salem-Kaiser Transit Board. This evening's agenda is fairly full. We have a number of items on the agenda. We will have the second reading and public hearing on ordinance number 2019-0 concerning fares. We will have deliberation and a public hearing. We will have a period for public comment. We will have some consent items, which are basically approval of minutes, and then we will move into action items, which includes a bus donation, approval of the Special Transportation Fund Advisory Committee recommendations for the STF and 5310 funding, a resolution number 2019-1 to amend the fiscal year 2019 adopted budget, and then approval of a health insurance broker for services contract, and then we'll have various reports from to include the trip choice, performance, and finance report for the second quarter. And with that, I will call the meeting to order and ask Director Kelly to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Linda, would you note attendance? I think we're all present. And the other item then is I'll call on our general manager for our safety moment.
Thank you. So our safety object for this month is fatigue. So it's important to be well rested, especially for those of us doing the people's work. And so one of the tips that we've been sharing is maintain a consistent sleep schedule and keep the ability to wake up and go to sleep at the same time will help that consistency so that you'll be well rested to minimize not only the work you do, but to help minimize any safety incidents as a result of being fatigued. With that, that's it.
Thank you. And are there any changes to the agenda? I would like to note that we're counting down the days, and we have 191 days until Saturday service starts. The next agenda item is the second reading of Ordinance 2019-01. At this time, I will have our General Manager provide the staff report.
Thank you. Let me ask Ted Stonecliffe to please present the report. So that's for the fares. So when we open this public hearing, she wants to speak.
President Krebs and members of the board, tonight we're asking the board to conduct the second reading of ordinance number 2019-01 by title, and
to consider changing the implementation date for the youth fair from July 1st, 2019 to June 1st, 2019. We gave an overview at the last board meeting of this whole process, but I'll just briefly cover the highlights. We started with public process back in the spring of 2018 and produced our fares analysis report. We did a comprehensive survey of our riders and the general public, non-riding public, and those results are documented in that report. We also have a public notice that advertised the first and second the first reading of our public process. And I'd like to go over our changes that we're proposing. If you can direct your attention to the screen over here, in the far right column are the proposed youth fares. The top shows for Cherriots local. The fare would be changing from 80 cents to 50 cents. And so the youth is from ages 6 to 18. we would not be changing that category age range. It's simply the dollar value that those folks would be charged. So the one ride would be reduced to 50 cents per ride. The day pass would go from $1.50 to $1. The 30-day pass from $22.50 to $10. And we're proposing to discontinue the summer youth pass. That's a 3-month product. And with the 30-day pass at $10 a month, there's no need to continue that summer youth pass. The annual pass would be reduced to $120 from $270. And that wraps it up for Cherriots Local. We'd also have a youth fair on the Cherriots Regional system with one ride reduced from $1.50 to $1, the day pass from $3 to $2, and the monthly pass from $30 to $20. All the other services, Cherriots Shop and Ride, Cherriots Lift, and Cherriots Route 1X service between Salem and Wilsonville would remain constant. Just to clarify the reason why we are requesting the change of the effective date of the ordinance from July 1st to June 1st is because we are proposing to discontinue our summer youth pass. If we had a July 1st date, we would still need to offer that pass on June 1st, and through the cost analysis, we've found that it's only costing the district approximately $12,000 to move that date from July 1st to June 1st. And that $12,000 approximately would be accommodated by the general fund, but it would also be paid for through the statewide transportation improvement fund. This is the impotence for the fare change. The STIF funding requires the district to spend 1% of those funds on students grades 9 through 12, and therefore this is our proposal to offer a youth fare for those students. So at this time, the staff recommends that the board consider changing the effective date for the youth fair to June 1st, 2019, instead of July 1st, 2019, as currently stated in the ordinance. The youth fair is less expensive than the summer youth pass, and the summer youth pass is proposed to be eliminated. Second, we ask you to direct the second reading of the ordinance 2019-01 by title. The board will then receive citizen testimony during the public hearing regarding proposed changes to the fare structure, rates, and effective date for transportation services pursuant to the ORS as listed. When there is no more public testimony, the public hearing will be closed and the board will move into deliberation. And I can answer any questions at this time.
Any questions? Okay, well, thank you. If no member present, if no board member present at this meeting objects, the second reading of the ordinance will be read by title only. And copies of ordinance 2019-01 are available at the back table for those who wish to have a copy of the ordinance, and that'll be over there. May I have a motion? Director Kelly.
I move that the board direct the second reading of ordinance 2019-01 by title. And then do I read that next part?
Oh, no.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Would the clerk of the board please read the ordinance by title only?
This is the second reading of ordinance 2019-01 by title. Ordinance number 2019-01, repealing ordinance number 2014-02 and establishing the Salem Area Mass Transit District fare categories and rates and establishing an effective date.
Thank you. It is now time for the public hearing. As you may recall, the board received verbal testimony on the proposed fare changes during the public hearing at the January 24th, 2019 board meeting. The board received written testimony from Michelle Swain on February 12th, 2019. Her comments have also been considered and will be entered into the record at tonight's meeting. Each of the testimonies received prior to tonight's meeting can be found on pages 55 to 58 of the agenda package. If there is anyone in the audience who would like to testify either for or against the proposed fare changes, individuals who give public testimony will have a 3-minute speaking limit. And with that, I will open the public hearing. And I have one person signed up, Toshiko Weinstein-Polson. Yes. Would you step up to the mic? Around the podium is fine.
Hello, my name is Toshiko, or Tashi for short. So I am a student over at Chemeketa, and I was hoping that the board would consider having a student fare. I'm fortunate enough that I'm disabled, so it's cheaper for me. But for a lot of students, we're heavily reliant on the public transit to be able to get to and from. And with the increased tuition that's going to start happening at Chemeketa, it's going to become even more expensive. And it's really expensive to drive a car. And we have, annual fees for that. So if you could have a student fare fee, or a student fare that would be cheaper than the regular, that would help a lot of students out. I know Portland and Lane Community College have something like that, and I'm from Eugene, and I've also gone to school up in Portland, and it's really helped out a lot of students. So I would hope that Cherry would also consider that.
Thank you. That is something we'd like to see happen, but in the case of Eugene and Portland, those are pass privileges that are arranged for the students at those schools by the schools themselves. So our staff will be working with Chemeketa to see if we can get something like that going here too. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to testify on this matter? Hearing no other replies, I will close the public hearing and move into deliberations. Is there any discussion? Then may we have a motion? Director Kelly?
I move that the board adopt ordinance 2019-01 effective June 1st, 2019, with a change in the implementation date for the youth fair from July 1st to June 1st, 2019.
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Director Bush.
I just appreciate all the work the staff has put in to do the research, the outreach, all the details they've had to put together for this, and our part towards implementing some of the STF monies. So I think this is a great thing that we're doing, and moving it to June 1st is a wise choice.
Any other comments?
STI, sorry.
I just say that, just for the audience, that we've had several meetings that have discussed this and worked on this over the last several months, so it's not something that just happened tonight.
Thank you.
Correction, it's the STIF money, not the STF money. Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready for a vote? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the motion carries. The next item on the agenda is period of public comment. And Ms. Polson, do you wish to speak again? Okay. This again is limited to 3 minutes per.
So I'm Tashi Toshiko Weinstein. So a couple of things. I take the bus pretty much to and from my house, and oftentimes the bus that I take tends to leave early. We had an incident, this Tuesday, where I took the 13 leaving my house to downtown, and it left early, and then as it was leaving, there was about 2 or 3 other people who waved down the bus, and we were about a block away from the original stop because the bus was supposed to leave at 7:04, and it ended up leaving at like 7:01, 7:02. And so the bus pretty much had to stop about a block away in order to be able to pick up the other people who were waving it down. Also, I've noticed that many of the buses tend to, when they get to a major stop, like maybe a transit stop, like at Chemeketa Community College or the one in West 11th, they usually, I've been timing it on my phone, they usually tend to stay for about 30 seconds or less. So they don't stay very long, and that makes it really difficult for those of us who are coordinating with different buses. So I've been taking a lot of the regional buses. So like I'll take the 1X, the 20X, and the, the 10X, and they don't coordinate. I'm also taking classes over at Yamhill, and the buses don't coordinate with each other, so oftentimes when I get in, I usually miss the 11, and I have to wait in the cold for about 10 to 15 minutes in order to be able to get there. And then when I want to go up to Oregon City, which I have to do tomorrow, because I am a horticulture major and they have a better program up there, I have to wait about a half an hour to 45 minutes or even an hour because the buses can't coordinate between 2 to 5 minutes between each other. And so it makes it really inconvenient for me as a student who's taking public transit and relies on public transit when the buses don't coordinate. Also, many of the shelters don't have light, and as a woman, it's really dangerous not to have light at these shelters because I'm also disabled and I'm at higher risk due to my disability of being attacked. And the stop over at the Chemeketa has no shelters over there, including the one over at Bay E. And that one has a lot of trees over there and a very high crime rate. So if you could pretty much add a shelter at some of these stops, that would be great. And I know Chemeketa used to have a shelter over at Wanima Place, but they moved it. So there's no longer a shelter over there. And I've also noticed that there are shelters across the street, but yeah, so.
Okay, thank you very much. And we've taken notes of those things. And I also have, one of the things we're going to do, we have several people from Falls City, and we're going to delay that testimony until we get to that issue on the agenda so that we can all talk about it at the same time. So if you're there for that, now I have Leslie Polson down.
We ride the bus a lot together. One of my questions is, how in the world did you come up with the schedule at the 3 and the 13? Because I can walk over to the bus stop at 7 o'clock in the morning, I wait there, and within 2 minutes or 3 minutes, the 3 and the 13 come simultaneously. So they're not 15 minutes apart. So that's my one beef. My next thing is we're going to Yamhill, going to McMinnville, and a lot of times the 11 will get there because they have to drive over that road from Amity, and it's kind of icy right now. So a lot of times we'll pull in and the 17 will see us and leave. So I'm wondering, why can't you wait? What is the 17 doing that so quickly that they have to drive to downtown with an empty bus? They can't wait for the 3 or 4 of us to get off the bus, so we have to pull over there and wait, and it's freezing cold right now. This is how I have ended up with laryngitis from taking the bus. So it's like, I want to support this project, but taking my car is a lot easier, except that I have car problems right now, so I'm depending on the bus, which is, so how do you all come up with these plans? Because nobody has any money, and we're supposed to use our money wisely, and yet I just find like so much waste. So that's my it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, with the cold weather, some of the buses have been running late, and that
Well, I get it.
creates
So
problems.
like tomorrow, my daughter needs to go up to Oregon City, so we were looking at, do we want the 7:45 or the 9:30? There is literally a 4-5 minute gap between coordinating the two services. So Cherriots will leave before the CAT bus will arrive. There is literally a 4-minute distance, which translates to a rider into having to wait up at that area for another hour and a half to coordinate with the CAT bus. It's like, wow, you can't even figure a way to coordinate with the CAT bus, which has been trying to run an every hourly service. I mean, we've contacted Julie, who's the manager up there at CAT, awesome, and everybody just says, oh, we have problems with Cherriots. It's like, okay, I get it. So we're here again. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have J.M. Schindley.
They're the same people.
It's Schindel.
Yeah.
And I have 2 comments and 2 suggestions. Number 1 is the number 2 bus, which goes down and up Market Street, often does not stop because probably they're running late because, you know, it comes down on Lancaster and Lancaster's a busy street. So to be able to make it here to the terminal, they just don't stop. Second thing, on Market Street, there is an extremely dangerous location to try to cross, and that is in the crosswalk at 15th and Market. Cars don't stop, and the bus stop is on the other side. So you can wait 12 minutes. You can actually see 2 buses go by, the one going up and the one going down, easily. And you can still not be able to cross the street to be able to catch either one. So 2 women have been hit in that crosswalk. It's highly dangerous. Okay, going to future possibilities, I think Cherriots must consider a north-south bus on perhaps 17th Street, because between Market and Capitol, there is no bus that actually goes more than a few blocks, which is the number 23, which goes a few blocks on 17th, period. And it's extremely annoying because it's more than 3 miles to be able to walk to a north-south area. And you have State Street, Center Street, Market Street, basically. But sometimes it's difficult to go north-south, except by walking. And for the elderly or people with disabilities, there's a problem. Okay, and then the 4th thing is Mountain West is making a large development on the area between Center Street and D Street. Actually, their property does not go on Center Street because that'll still be owned by the state. And this is from Park to 25th. Now, the 23 had been going up and down D Street, and I highly recommend that perhaps you institute, again, putting the 23 going down D Street, because there will be in excess of 1,400 new people moving into that particular area. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to comment on general transit issues? If not, we will close the public comment period and move on to the consent calendar.
Move approval of the consent calendar?
Been moved,
No, I second it.
moved, seconded. Any comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we will go on to our action items. And the first one is resolution number 2019-02, bus donation. And I'll call on our general manager to present the...
Thank you. So the item before you tonight is whether or not to adopt Resolution 2019-2, which would authorize the donation of a surplus vehicle to the Northwest Hub. I can tell you a couple of months ago, Kirk Seifert, the executive director of Northwest Hub, submitted a letter requesting the board consider donating a surplus vehicle to them. And he is here, and I'd ask him to come up to make a few comments after I complete the report. So we have been working with him on his request. Currently, we have vehicle number 303, which is a part of the Cherriots regional fleet, as a surplus vehicle that meets the needs of the Northwest Hub. So when we have surplus vehicles, typically they are beyond it, well, they're not typically, they are beyond their useful life. And we'll either donate or sell them to other transit agencies or sell for scrap metal. But when the district does receive a nominal amount of revenue, it's typically less than $5,000. By donating the vehicle, we would be foregoing that nominal revenue. However, the value of the community goodwill and partnership would easily exceed that potential revenue loss. So Mr. Seifert is here, who would be happy to answer any questions about what this vehicle would do for the community. And before he talks, I'd just say the staff is recommending that the board adopt this resolution.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. I'm happy to answer any questions. I recognize a few faces here. If you don't know anything about our organization, we also provide alternative transportation, mostly to individuals in transitional living situations. We get referrals from different agencies, DeMuna's, the Parolee Resource Center, transitional living programs, refugee resettlement, and refurbish and distribute bicycle commuter packages. So it's particularly helpful in oftentimes conjunction with the bus system, those hours of operation where perhaps a bus isn't readily available. So a lot of our folks, barriers to employment, they're working nights, weekends, swing shifts, and so forth. So that's oftentimes the reason that they're referred to us. The vehicle, and I think you have my proposal there, the vehicle is actually primarily focused on serving our outreach efforts. So with Cherriots, we do a lot of events in the community. So we were at Polk County Homeless Connect, and we'll be at Marion County Connect, Open Street Salem. We work with a lot of Title I schools, so we'll be doing no-cost bicycle repair and maintenance, bicycle refurbishment and distribution to Title I schools in the area, as well as underserved communities. Jervis and Woodburn are communities that we've worked in the past, and they've requested additional assistance, but a vehicle has actually been one of the biggest barriers to our ability to go serve them with any regularity or at a scale of operation that would really be impactful. So.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Just can I make a comment?
Director Evans.
I just want to comment that I think that's a fantastic program that you're doing, and appreciate your support in the community, what you're doing. Thank you.
Director Bush.
Yeah, I echo the same thing. I drive by and ride on the bus on the 19 past your business quite often, and I have these bikes on my porch that need to come your way.
Okay.
So it keeps reminding me they'll get there.
Any other comments or Director Lincoln?
Yes, I've been in your store before too, and I think it's great that you're fixing up bicycles that might otherwise just sit in a garage and rust away. And a lot of kids would ride bikes if they worked well, and so this is a great thing you're doing, not just for kids but all kinds of folks.
Yeah, as you said, the entire program initially, the storefront is really our primary revenue stream. We do income-based sales and just general sales and service to the public, and it's also a venue where we do some job and vocational training as well. But the outreach, the requests for outreach event and support has grown and grown and grown, and so our just capacity is very limited. Those of you that do pass by our facility will see a very, very old and tired Suburban, which we've sort of nursed along as best we could over the years, but it's not really capable of continuing on much longer, and it's pretty inefficient. So the vehicle in question that we actually were able to look at is very ideally suited to be outfitted as a full service, basically mobile repair vehicle, which we can then just quite efficiently drive to locations, outreach locations in underserved communities, which is our intent.
Thank you. Any other questions? Director?
This originally started as an outreach by providing bicycles, right, and then providing training. And I think I saw a video probably 3 or 4 years ago at an event that sort of highlighted what you're doing. And it's a really good thing to happen. Now, the good news is, as President Krebs said, we're going to start having Saturday service in the fall, which will help. So, but the bicycles can always go on the front of the bus to help people.
It's again, it's oftentimes used. It's probably more often than not. Our recipients of bicycles are using it in conjunction with public transit. So it's just beneficial to have more options and versatility. Whatever people's resources may be. So.
Well, they actually work together because, as Director Kelly said, we carry the bicycles on the bus, so you can use the bus to travel the long distance and the bicycle to get you to the area where the bus doesn't go.
Making a connection, oftentimes it's quick, or you miss a connection perhaps,
So, yes, Director Rogers.
I've only just recently heard about you for the first time, but everything I've heard so far sounds like you're having a good impact on the community. But I was wondering, if you don't get the bus, how will that impact you?
How will it impact us? We've tabled a number of opportunities to do more outreach and mobile repair services in a couple of communities, namely Woodburn at this point, simply because we just didn't really have the means. So we have actually raised a bit of support for a vehicle, but we'd never really achieved the resources necessary to procure one. So in this instance, being able to simply modify a vehicle and outfit it accordingly, I think is within our means in the very near future. So it will certainly fast track and scale what we can do at these events. It's very inefficient, and we can only take so many tools from an operating shop, pack them up into an old Suburban and lug them around and then unpack them. It's very inefficient for our staff, and it's pretty inadequate on the premises to just kind of be unpacking each
Sure.
Our limited tooling and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
So
Thank you. Are we ready for a vote? Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration, and Alan for just facilitating this whole process. We very much appreciate it.
Are we ready for a vote? Director Evans?
I move that the board adopt resolution 2019-02 for the donation of a surplus vehicle to the Northwest Hub.
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and motion carries. Thank you very much.
Again, on behalf of our board, I'm very grateful, and we thank you.
And we'll move on to the next item, which is approval of the Special Transportation Fund Advisory Committee recommendations for the Special Transportation Fund and 5310 fund. And with that, I'll call on our general manager to introduce the subject.
Yes, so I'd ask Ron Harding, who's the chair of the STF Advisory Committee, and Ted Stonecliffe, the STF administrator for the district, to come forward, present the report. And I think after that, then you can receive public testimony.
Yes.
All right. Good evening. I'm always glad to be here in front of the board to present on behalf of the STFAC committee. As you know, every 2 years we award the 5310 and the STF grants. through a process that begins with a technical advisory committee. During that process, we typically will hear presentations from the applicants, go through a ranking process, so to speak, talk about the various pros and cons of the applications, and then generally end up making a recommendation that then goes to the STF Advisory Committee to review as well. We went through that process as typical. We never have enough money to fund all of the requests, so it's always a difficult process. And we did make a recommendation to the STF Advisory Committee. That committee had a subsequent meeting and reviewed those recommendations, and we did accept some public testimony. And originally, we did award a limited amount of money to a Falls City application. As part of the STFAC committee meeting, however, we were able to talk a little bit more in depth in that forum about what the impacts of that award would be, because we were going to have to cut service somewhere else in order to follow through with that application. And based on that information, the STFAC committee modified their recommendation, which is what's before you tonight. So our recommendation for the 2018-21 biennium is in your packet, and it's attachment A. I know there's been some written comments, and I know there's a few folks here that are here for public comment. So after we're done, I'll stick around in case you have any questions, but I'm happy to answer any questions about our recommendation.
Thank you. And do we have more?
We don't know who they are. I mean,
And, okay, we have.
we don't have a list.
Yes. So, are there any questions right now for our? I guess not. We will call you back if we need.
All right.
Okay. And at this time.
Just have a seat there. Just
sit
there.
Yeah. At this time, we'll open the period for public comment on this issue, and the first person that's signed up is Colleen Bradford, and she's a Polk County resident and community member. And the testimony is limited to 3 minutes, but we want to hear what you have to say.
Amy was reminding me that. Hello to the board. I'm Colleen Bradford, and Melissa Bauer and I sent in the email as part of the public testimony, but both of us wanted to be here, and she has a family emergency, and so I'm presenting on behalf of both of us to the board. So Melissa is with the Santiam Hospital, and then I'm with Department of Human Services. We are longtime community partnership coordinators and partners, mostly in the rural areas, so Polk County and the Canyon area. We are, this is in regards to the funding of the Falls City Direct Connect at the proposed amount of $51,282. As invited members this year to be part of the Cherriots STF Technical Advisory Committee, we would like you to take into consideration our concerns of the proposal made by, and forgive me if we got your title wrong, proposal made by Cherriots. We have CEO Alan Pollock, but I see general manager, so.
Same thing.
Thank you. Thank you. On January 29th, the STF TAC proposed to fund Falls City Direct Connect at approximately $51,000 for 2 years, and to continue to fund the existing projects at their scaled back amount. A few of the priority areas were to fund innovative projects, preference to existing projects, and access to the rural areas. The proposal met those priorities. In this current day and age, we need to be looking to the future, not of the past. We should be commending those who have presented innovative projects, and we should be looking at transportation expansion into low-income areas where public transportation doesn't exist. Falls City is a very rural area, about 10 miles from Dallas. Approximately 1,000 residents live there, which includes seniors, people with disabilities, people who suffer from isolation and loneliness. In Falls City, you will not find a gas station or a medical clinic or an affordable grocery store. The library recently closed due to lack of funding, so there are no places to use a public computer in order to help with job search, apply for benefits, etc. The nearest college is in Dallas or Monmouth. Very few employment options are in Falls City, and this results in people needing to get to look for work outside of Falls City, which is a barrier when there is no transportation. For years, Falls City residents have come together to address transportation, the lack of, and the need for. A little over a year ago, a new committee was formed in partnership with Polk County and Willamette Valley Community Health, the CCO. Polk County applied for a grant through the CEO, which was approved. The grant was used to pay for a part-time driver and trips to Dallas and Monmouth. Polk County donated their van to be used. They were very fortunate to hire a driver that is able to assist as a resource navigator, who has a relationship and trust with the community. Without Richard the driver and the Falls City Direct Connect, many residents that have been mentioned above would not have access to needed services and socialization. Seniors would not have access to their medical appointments. Parents would not have access to shop and stretch their income or SNAP benefits. In closing, we have the STFAC. So there is a neutral, non-biased group to convene and make recommended proposals to the board. STFAC is formed to protect the process from not being one-sided or biased, given that the majority of funding each year goes to Cherriots. To disregard the STFAC's proposal and fund existing projects at 100% questions the integrity of the process. We as community partners who respect the processes and the committee would hope the board tonight decide to approve the STFAC's original proposal and fund Falls City Direct Connect at the suggested amount of approximately $51K. Am I out of time? Because I have a lot
Yes.
to say. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just, sorry.
I have a question. Would you continue?
Oh.
That was legal.
I'll be quick.
No problem.
So just on a personal note, I am 61 years old, and I got my first car at age 30. I'll be quick. Before age 30, the Cherriots, the transportation in Salem, was my lifeline. Jason was about 3 years old. So Jason and I, the Cherriots was our lifeline. It was our socialization. It got Jason to the daycare. It got me to work. It got us to the grocery store on Saturdays. We had Saturday transportation at that time. We were able to go to the park. We were able to get some, school clothes, shopping. During the work day, it got us to the doctors. So, I had to use a little extra time from work because, the Cherriots, you got to kind of, travel around their time. But it got us to the doctors and those appointments. And it also, when I talk about the socialization, that's where we met John the driver, and he was the Judson Little League president, and he got us involved with T-ball and all of that. I didn't even know what T-ball was at the time. And we met other people on the bus. We met a person that worked for Support Enforcement Division, and she helped me with child support, how I could apply for child support. So the Cherriots, and Tommy would ride a few times. Tommy was a well-known Cherriots rider in town. And so that, I've always advocated for the Cherriots, and I cherish the Cherriots, and I wanted you all to know that what the Cherriots was for Jason and I is what Richard and the Falls City Direct is for the people in Falls City. I've known those people for over 25 years, and the Cherriots did come out there one time, but there wasn't enough ridership, so that had to end. But I just wanted you to know that there's a realness with this and real lives, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Oh, and this is over at the table.
Yes. We all have a copy of your letter. We received that in our meeting materials. And is it Brent DeMol? DeMolk?
It is.
Okay. And
Good evening. For the record, my name is Brent DeMo. I have the pleasure of working for Polk County for the last 11 years. I'm the director of a department called Family and Community Outreach, and we were the ones that worked with community partners to start providing transportation to our most rural and impoverished area in Polk County, and that's Falls City. So 3 minutes isn't a lot of time, but I know you all got an email from me yesterday and some response also today. I really hope you take the time not just to read the text of the email, but the attachments as well. I've worked for the state, I've worked for the county, I've worked for the city, and I've worked for the school district, and I've been in charge of lots of procurement processes at every one of those jobs throughout my career. And what I really think the big issue here is I'm seeing a lack of a procurement process that makes sense to an outside entity. I'm really hoping, if you take anything away from what I've said and the emails that we sent on behalf of the county commissioners and everybody else out in Polk County, I hope that you don't move forward with a vote today and do us justice by at least taking 2 weeks to look at the process on how these decisions were made. There's no hurry to do this process tonight. The funding wouldn't even be available till July 1. It would also save us from having to protest at ODOT, which we already have those documents lined up to do an appeal. So if we can delay that vote and just have a conversation and learn what the process is or isn't and what process was taken to get to this point, that would really satisfy us in Polk County to look at that and have a neutral third party be a part of that. The other thing that I want to say, you guys, $24,000 a year is all it takes to do this transportation in Falls City. That's 2 routes, or 2 days a week, 4 routes a day, connecting people who have no connection to anything. The county in-kinds the bus. We provide all of the maintenance. Our driver is not just a driver. He is a resource connector. That's his job title. He connects the people of Falls City to every resource that they need. $24,000 a year is pretty innovative and a pretty inexpensive way to do a transportation program. I'm not asking you to fund that tonight. I'm asking you to at least slow that process down and let's look at it. And perhaps funding can come from that, or maybe there's another creative solution. But like I said, if you guys do move forward with a vote tonight, we do plan on appealing anyway, so it might just save a little bit of heartache to delay that vote for a little bit. I'm going to stick around in case you guys have any questions about anything that I can answer on behalf of the county, and I just thank you for your time. And I want the record to show I did not get my hand raised.
okay. Well, just a moment. Does anyone have questions? Director Kelly?
So you're saying that the cost is $24,000 a year, and that Polk County provides the vehicle?
Correct. We did it last year for
gas.
$24,000 for 1 year was the total cost of the program that we received cash from the Coordinated Care Organization. The funding that was proposed, I think it was $51,000 for the biennium. We could provide the exact same service for that amount, and the county will still continue to provide the maintenance, provide the bus, and have the driver.
The amount requested for the grant was basically $180,000, so that's why I had sort of
Sure.
that little
Yeah, the
question.
original grant, I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. The original grant was increasing the service to 4 days a week to include Saturday service to connect people to your bus on Saturdays. And it was also adding a day of service to connect our veterans in Polk County to the resources in Salem. I don't know if you guys are aware, but currently many of the veteran places in Salem, the Cherriots bus doesn't actually go to because of where they moved. So our proposal is that much because it would actually be 5 days of service, 4 of them for Falls City and 1 of them for veterans. With our scaled down amount, which we didn't get, you scaled it and then scaled it and then scaled it. I think it might have been 24% of the original. We would be able to maintain the 2 days a week that we currently do in Falls City, and we would be really happy with that.
Any other questions? Director Thompson?
Any chance the CCO will help you again?
What's a CCO? I'm kidding, I'm being facetious. They're going through a big change. So the CCO of today will not be the CCO of tomorrow. An RFP was issued for that. It's a competitive process that's up for bid right now. There will be a new CCO, but we're looking at 2020 before there's a possible grant of funding for that. Truthfully, there are grants that we can look for, but this belongs as a transportation. This belongs for you guys to be funding because it is transportation. It meets every criteria in the RFP that you sent out, every single one. We have a disproportionate amount of people who are seniors and have disabilities in Falls City than the rest of the region. There are no services or transportation. It is innovative and new, and it's super inexpensive. So it really belongs for you all to fund. That's our belief, and that's why we spent all the time and got all the partners together to submit that application.
Yes.
And there's no fare?
No fare. When you get to hear from Mayor Gordon a little bit later, you'll hear a little bit about the demographics of Falls City. When we did all of our due diligence in researching how to do this, we looked at charging $1, charging $2. We did community forums and surveys, and people don't have that money in Falls City. So we're offering it for free.
Mm-hmm. Marcia or Director Kelly?
Alan, can you explain, people are calling out and saying that Cherriots are taking the money. Can you explain the regional thing? It's not Cherriots?
Sure.
Please.
Sure. So I'll actually say a little bit more. So this money, when it says Cherriots there, it goes to the Cherriots Regional Service, the Cherriots Lift Service, which is the paratransit service, and the Cherriots Shop and Ride. So the regional service is the service that is provided outside of the urban growth boundary in Marion and Polk County, the service that goes to the small towns in Marion and Polk County. Not sure.
Okay, because one of the things, and the prior speaker referred to the fact that we used to have Saturday service. We are on a property tax like the counties and the city are. We are not on a payroll tax like Portland and Eugene. And so we have the same crunches that happened to the county with the property tax. And those dollars that we collect from our property tax needs to stay within the urban growth boundary. We contract and we put together the funding to go out into the other areas, but a whole bunch of this funding is for the regional transportation that used to be called carts. And now we've decided to brand everything Cherriots, so now it's gotten a little bit more difficult to explain. But I just wanted to make sure that people knew that part of the reason that we've had all of these issues for the 30 years that I've been on the board, all we've done is cut, and we're finally going to be able to do some improvements when the new state money comes in, but the new state money is not here yet. So can you also explain the coordinated plan?
Sure. I asked Ted. He's our coordinated plan expert. So
Y'all want me to stay up here still?
Do we have any more?
Just to respond to what you said, ma'am, I'm totally familiar with Cherriots. You guys have great representation at all of our meetings. I know your coordinated plan front and back. What I do want to say, though, is if the priority is to fund things in the urban growth boundary, why did you do an RFP that said we welcome new proposals with an emphasis on rural and places with no transportation? It takes a long time for a guy like me in a small department in Polk County to write a grant of the magnitude that you guys asked. And that's where the process part comes in. If you solicit new RFPs, what process is there to ensure that they have a fair shake? Because if you don't need any new programs, you shouldn't ask for them. Thank you.
I think you've misunderstood. What she's saying is that this helps fund most of the regional, all of this, that when we fund a bus in town, that comes from a different pot. It doesn't come from this pot at all.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Just to answer Director Kelly's question about, or clarification about the coordinated plan, this is a planning document that does govern our allocation for STF and 5310 dollars. It's a required document both from the state and federal side, and was developed through a lengthy public process back in 2016, which many of you probably remember. It does outline the priorities and strategies, and we've gone over this with the committee and with the applicants. Basically, the first priority is to maintain or expand existing services, increasing capacity hours, improving service quality, avoid service reductions in both urban and rural areas. And I think innovation has been mentioned quite often tonight, and that is also a priority listed. But this is the document that is governing the committee's recommendation that they made at their February 12th meeting. Sure.
And we approved that, Ted, right?
Yes.
In 2016.
Yes.
So, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about from the committee's perspective. So the TAC committee is the STFAC committee. It's the same committee, except we have some additional members that come from various, I think there's 4 additional members, is that right? 3 additional members that come from other areas to work on the TAC. And one of the difficulties that we found this year, because we did have this new application, was really talking about how to look at those priorities in the strategic plan. And unfortunately, we had a limited amount of time, and we ended up making the award in the last few minutes of the meeting. So we had discussion, but we made that award asking questions of staff that then would come back to the STFAC committee. So we knew we were going to revisit and look at some of those things. So I just want to clarify that that is the process. It isn't, the TAC committee alone isn't the process. It still has to go and then be revisited by the advisory committee before we make a recommendation here. So some of that discussion having to do with innovation, when we got to the advisory committee, then took on what did innovation mean? And where we landed as a group was innovation isn't just a new application for service. Just a bus route somewhere else isn't innovation. But what we were looking for is there an opportunity for a new applicant to come and provide a service that's more cost effective than we're currently providing with that rural service? That's innovation. How do we provide more service or more service to more places or multiple services necessarily for less money? So it went from that initial reaction to it being a new application to a little deeper conversation that just because somebody applies with a new application isn't merit enough for that to be awarded, that there has to be rationale behind that new application. And what we don't want to see, and what innovation doesn't mean to us as a committee, is reducing service to a greater number of people in order to provide service that's new to a smaller number of people. So it really has to hit multiple marks for us.
With all due respect, I just need to say that, then put it in the RFP. Define it in the RFP. You don't need to change it halfway through. If you have something like that, put it in the RFP. That's the process part.
Okay, thank you. We're ready to move our Mayor Jeremy Gordon from Falls City.
Good evening, President Krebs and members of the board, General Manager Pollock. My name is Jeremy Gordon, and I am a resident of Falls City, and I've served as mayor there since November of 2017. And I'm here to speak on behalf of the Falls City Direct Connect Transportation Program, a service that has quite literally saved and extended the lives of our residents during a successful inaugural year. To lament the process, by which the Technical Advisory Committee's recommendation to fund our program was rejected by the STF Advisory Committee, I guess it's the same committee, seemingly at the request of a single executive, Alan Pollock, and to urge this organization to apply the tenets of its coordinated plan to consider the needs of communities outside the urban growth boundary of Salem-Keizer. When we received the announcement that the STF Technical Advisory Committee ranked our program 4th out of 8 and suggested that $51,000 of funding over 2 years to sustain the project, I was elated and inspired to help connect even more of our deserving residents in need of transportation to reach basic essential services, like food, for example. To tell them that this service would not fail them, that their government can be trusted, and that a new and innovative partnership, the innovations in the partnership, has been formed to help with their transportation needs. But instead, I'm here before you begging. The geographic isolation of Falls City intersects in devastating ways with the high poverty rate of 55%, 30% rate of persons with disability, and 18% of residents 65 years old and above. I do not have time to share with you all the individual stories of my neighbors who rely on this service, but I'm not being hyperbolic when I tell you that without transportation options, people will die earlier than they ought to, leave chronic conditions untreated, and go hungry, as they are. Falls City does not have a grocery store, as was said, doctor clinic, mental health services, veteran services, or disability services. Residents are asked to arrange all of their own transportation to buy groceries outside of town, to see providers in Dallas, which is over 10 miles away, Monmouth, maybe, which is about 15 miles away, and Salem, which is almost 30 miles away. The coordinated plan asks you to, quote, implement new and innovative initiatives related to technology and collaborative partnerships to improve service to underserved communities and people. The Falls City Direct Connect provides an opportunity for an innovative cross-sector collaboration, a network of collaborators that is necessary in order to provide service to rural areas with high rates of aging and disabled populations. The project would be a dream case study of success in any public policy school. With any innovation comes risk, of course, but let me assure you that we are determined to strengthen a lasting partnership to provide service to Falls City residents. And if Cherriots cannot be our partner, who can? Please partner with us. The transportation is a necessary but insufficient piece of the puzzle, of course. That is, we have innovative and robust county departments poised to serve the underserved in Falls City, a supportive board of commissioners who has championed the service despite transportation not being in their wheelhouse of services, a service integration system connecting communities to services, and a team of partners who are doers and collaborators. Transportation is the #1 missing link for underserved people in Falls City. I urge you to reconsider the preference of your executives and work with us, your community. In addition to this being a missed opportunity for an innovative collaborative partnership, I urge the organization to look beyond a simple cost per rider formula when determining cost effectiveness. The depth of need in Falls City and other isolated communities demands that we include equity in our calculus. As you know, proximity to services is essential even in more populated urban areas. Imagine the devastation that abject isolation causes in places like Falls City. With that, I urge this board to delay the vote and ensure that the selection process runs its course appropriately and according to the needs of its community. Thank you.
Thank you. The board members have questions?
I have a couple. First question for the chairman there. Did anybody bother running the percentage on what it would take to fund all 7?
To fund all the applications?
Yes.
I don't know if I understand the question.
Well, I just did it.
Okay.
It would take less than 2.5% reduction in each one of the categories, and you could fully fund the Falls City. If you did 2%, you could get really close.
So
that's on $10,000. That's $250.
So I guess the process that we do is something similar to that. Typically, what we would do is we would take our total amount. We'd do the ranking. The ranking's somewhat subjective. We don't really use a criteria. It's just what do members...
Right. I understand the process.
Yeah. And then we typically do that scaled down model, which is what we did at the TAC committee level, was what we would typically do. When we got to the advisory committee level, we had a number of questions having to do with the strategic plan. It was not clear to us at the TAC level if the strategic plan priorities were ranked in order form, or if that was the intent, because it's not clearly defined in the strategic plan. So that was one of the questions that we had. But also, what would be the impact? I think we'd be doing a disservice, at least the advisory committee felt we'd be doing a disservice to eliminate, 1,000 riders to accommodate 150 riders. And so that was a trap we didn't want to really fall into, and that became part of the discussion. So it was nothing against a particular application or in support of another application.
Sure.
It really had to do with, we don't want to displace a lot of current riders to try a relatively new service with a limited number of riders.
Yeah, I'm looking at your categories here, and who told you you're going to displace 1,000 riders?
I made up a number.
I know you
We
did.
didn't have a.
These are all
a
maintenance.
specific-
Most of these are maintenance.
It's the bottom, that's the top.
Oh, well, I know, but I'm only looking at the bottom.
I believe the staff report.
Help me, Alan. Explain this.
I'd be happy, I'm not quite sure what you're asking. Your original question was how much would it cost, at least in STF, it would cost $2.5 million. The requests were $2.5 million, the available money is $1.9 million.
Yes.
Which one are you looking?
I'm looking at the top, the STF.
I see.
And
Okay.
this is the operations,
If you-
and the bottom one is a lot of maintenance.
Yes,
Because one is the STF allocation,
and one is the 5310.
and the other is 5310.
Got it.
So
Well, I just did the math on the wrong section, but I'll go back and do the math on the other.
Yeah, it's about,
He's not ready to make a decision. This is my opinion. I'd love to work with you.
So, and I think the 5310 request had to do with vehicle.
Yeah.
So we were, the discussion centered around the STF allocation.
because Polk County has been providing a vehicle, but were they gonna, was Polk County gonna pull the vehicle?
Well, Polk County submitted an application for operations and then also submitted an application for a vehicle replacement.
We're talking about operations here.
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. No vehicles were funded.
I'll drive this vehicle, I'll help fix it.
And so could we ask Steve's question on the operations then? What is being displaced in order for the scaled down request here for 51,000?
Okay. So, all right. So if I get you, so let's first talk about what scaled request means. That is not what, if you look at the amount requested, so since the issue is Cherriots, the request was for $1.5 million. That was to maintain existing levels of service.
For the regional.
For the regional, the shop, and it partially funds each of those services. We submitted a scale request because that was part of what was asked for. That was the intent. If there's not enough money available, how much can you're having to cut service, but in the scale request, the discussion that I brought up was that was if the existing providers had to give up something because the coordinated plan says do not, to maintain existing levels of service. Yeah. So even at the scale request, we're not maintaining the existing levels of service. And so,
Trying to get at.
yes. And so where I think what you're trying to say is, if you look at the scaled request, those are kind of misleading because that's not what people are asking for. Right. That is kind of how can you compromise? But I want to be clear that compromising of the existing recipients to minimize overall regional impact is one thing. Scaling back and giving less than the maintaining of service for new services where I said violates the coordinated plan and you needed to follow the coordinated plan.
Sure.
I would say the same thing even if we were not asking to enhance service.
So
that was the argument.
No services are meeting what their needs are.
Nobody is receiving to meet their needs. Woodburn Transit will have to reduce service. Well, maybe not, because what they will have to do is either reduce service or find other ways to cut money. I'm not, I don't think that's answering really what the question you have is.
It is. That's what I was.
So I want to make, so amount requested is what agencies submitted.
Right.
The scaled request is what they submitted saying, if there isn't enough money available, we'd like to have at least this much, with no explanation of what that impact is. That's really designed, okay, there's not, because there isn't enough money there, because you can see there's $1.9 million available. Total requests are $2.5 million. So just to start, you have to shave $500,000 off the requests.
Right.
And one way to do that is look at scaled requests. And what I submitted when I talked to the TAC, or not the TAC, the advisory committee, was that the scaled requests should only be used in conjunction with existing levels of service, because you should maintain existing levels of service in accordance with the coordinated plan.
Yeah. Well, being on the OHAS board at one time where we provided those rural services, I totally understand the impact of scaling back, because we would always bleed at the end of the period, and we would go negative. So, yeah, and then we'd have to get Betsy tax credits to supplement it, whatever. And that doesn't exist anymore.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yes, Director Thompson?
As I recall from the meeting, Brent, it was 70 riders a month for 32 trips, is that correct?
Can you ask that again?
Yeah, you had, I think you recall 70 riders per month for the 32 trips per month.
Does anybody know the answer from there?
Okay.
I believe in the flyer they presented it for the month of November was 70 rides.
Yeah, November for the, if I'm remembering the flyer, I might actually have it in my bag. One of the things that's hard to capture with riders is there's multiple routes per day, and there's multiple stops per day. I know that over the 12-month time that we presented, we had over 747 unique rides that happened. For a population of only 1,000 people in Falls City, it doesn't mean 700 people in Falls City rode the bus, but they were unique rides. There are people who use it every Tuesday and Thursday.
Okay.
Sorry that didn't answer completely, but our grant application does spell out exact ridership and what our projections were too.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
We have one more person signed up, Amy Hautailing, and you're with the Falls City School District?
I am. I'm Amy Hoteling. I'm with Falls City School District. I'm the after-school program director. And in small towns and small districts, we wear multiple hats, so I could talk about my other hats, but I won't. 11 years ago, we started our after-school program, and with that, we wrote a 21st Century Learning grant through the state, and we did a needs assessment. And we determined that transportation was a huge barrier for students to have enriching activities. So we started our after-school program, and we were able to bring resources to Falls City with the help of Polk County Community and Family Outreach. And we've had dental vans, we've had produce giveaways, we've had we've been able to bring these things to Falls City because of the transportation barrier, which has been amazing, and it's taught our students a new culture that we've been trying to cultivate for the last 11 years, which we'd like to give hand-ups, not handouts. And as the years are going on, we're realizing, okay, we've got the kids now, we've got them hooked. They're going to reach out for resources, and they're going to get a job, and they're not going to live by a paycheck in their mailbox. And then we decided, in order for this to be sustainable, we needed to get parents on board. Parents needed to start thinking outside of their welfare disbursement and things like that. And so we've been trying to do that. And in order to do that, the Direct Connect has been a great resource for our community and for our families. We have, our seniors are required to do job shadows, and they they aligned their job shadows on Tuesdays and Thursdays when the Connect was running so that they could use that to go to their job shadows. We have kiddos trying to get driver's permits so that they can be in a driver's education program, which our after-school program pays for them to take, and they go on the Direct Connect to do those kind of things. So it's not just helping our outlying community, it's helping our students. And that is one of the things that, I'm also on the Oregon Community Foundation Leadership Council for Polk and Marion County and Yamhill. And that is one of the initiatives that they're working on right now, is closing the opportunity gap and recognizing it's all over the nation, but especially in rural, high poverty areas like Falls City. And so when we got the news of the initial email, I was thrilled to know that a Marion County entity was willing to help us close the opportunity gap for our youth, because they're our future, and we know that. And the only way to do that is to really work together. And then to hear that there was some controversy and different things going on, I completely understand when programs don't get funded. We didn't get our 21st Century grant this year for after school program, and we have local option funds and different funds that have helped us, but it's been a struggle. So I understand that. I wanted you to know what kind of an impact it affects on the students, because it really is a big one, and those families utilize it for medical appointments and all sorts of things, which you've already heard. But I just wanted you to know that Falls City School District supports this and values it very much. And yeah, it may not seem like a lot to you, but for a program to take off in a year in Falls City that quick, it's got to be pretty phenomenal, because there's some major trust issues in Falls City with the residents, some of the residents. And so Richard is amazing and very trustworthy, and it was an easy program to get off the ground thanks to all the entities. So I just want to share a little bit with you about Falls City. I've only lived there 12 years. I grew up in Southern California, so it's been a great opportunity to get to know them, and I hope that you can help us be a part of lessening the opportunity gap for all of our youth. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wants to speak on this subject?
I have a question.
Yes?
Go to the microphone.
Yes, you are.
You
Come on.
need to come to the microphone.
So I have one question and then a comment. So the question is, and this has been on my mind and kind of bugging me, I understand that we fund existing for first. However, then why have this one committee looking at new if obviously you don't have enough money? I'm not good with numbers. There's not enough money to fund it all, but you fund the existing first. So then all the money would go to existing first, which wouldn't leave any money for new. So why have a committee that devotes their time to looking at that? I'm confused with that part of it.
Thanks.
Well, it's a question.
Can you follow up on that, Al? On why we have a committee?
Do you have it's basically, as an STF agency, we're responsible for putting out the grant as the grant language states. That is there whether or not there is enough money available. Sometimes there's more money than requests, and that's where those opportunities come in from. You can't pick and choose what the requirements of the grant are.
But you know ahead of time how much money you have, right?
Not long.
Not always. I think we have to go through the process each biennium to meet our state and federal qualifications. But essentially, it's up to the individual applicants to submit their applications. So we, as Salem Area Mass Transit District, are doing the process for everyone, including Cherriots. So my role is to take a step back and not know anything about the applications that are coming in until they come in. And so we have this process going forward, and maybe that needs to be
Well, I guess
looked at.
this is a statewide process, and other entities may not have their top priority to be maintained service. Just depends. It is kind of contradictory because there's this pot of money, and just to maintain services, there's not enough money. That isn't always the case. So,
Well, and I'd just make the comment that I made earlier. So if, let's say, for instance, the canyon is an area that's difficult for transportation, if somebody came forward with an application for a new service that would enhance that service, an entity that was up the canyon that said, well, we'll provide transportation service with volunteers and, partial volunteers and stuff like that, that could then reduce the ask for the regional if that route went away. So there should be opportunity for innovation, but in my mind, as we discussed it as a committee, it really needed to take the form of innovative partnerships means we're not getting rid of service, but we're enhancing service somewhere.
And just a comment, and that being part of that original committee, Melissa and I both, we took it very seriously. I mean, I read every one of those proposals, and just took it very seriously, and I thought that committee was very responsible and took their time to ensure that everybody did get funded. And I just wanted to say it wasn't rushed. I didn't feel that we were rushed at the last minute to make this decision. I knew Falls City was the last one because it was the number that was last. And so I just want this board to know we did not rush through this and make this decision haphazardly at the last minute. Thank you.
Thank you. I think one of the things, did you wish to speak?
If I may.
Yes, just step up to the mic and identify yourself.
Thank you very much. My name is Jessica Madronell. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for Polk County. I didn't originally sign up to speak because I have already submitted 4.5 pages of my account from the last meeting, so if you've taken the time to read that, I do appreciate your time. I just wanted to kind of touch on a couple quick things. So back to this issue of not having enough time to make this decision. So Committee Chair Ron Harding has mentioned that again this evening that there wasn't enough time at the initial decision meeting. And at the meeting on February 12th, many of the committee members mentioned that there wasn't enough time to make that decision. However, they had less than 1 hour to go over the proposals that Ron Harding submitted that same day, and they were asked to vote on those that same day. And I feel like that decision was really made in haste. So back to what my boss Brent DeMoe said, is there a rush to make a decision today? If you haven't had the opportunity to look over all of the applications, would you take time to do that? I understand that the reason you have the advisory committee is so that you don't have to deal with all those tedious little details of making those decisions. And I've heard that historically the board has been open to accepting the recommendation of the advisory committees in the past. But maybe, it would be worth it to take a look at the application if you haven't already. And then I also want to go back to how we keep defining innovation. In my account, I mentioned that Committee Chair Ron Harding and CEO Alan Pollock define innovation by dollar value. But when I think of innovation, I think Falls City is a shining example of innovation. You have 1,000 people that live in an isolated community, most of which don't have internet. They don't have cell service because the city doesn't have the infrastructure for it. As Mayor Gordon mentioned, the library has closed. People don't have access to the internet. So in this day and age, if you wanted to find out where the WIC office was or where you could get help paying your rent, how would you find that out? You would probably look online. But if you don't have access to the internet and your community doesn't have access to the internet, you're in the dark. That's why our driver is so much more than a driver. He is a resource connector. Part of our department is the Dallas Resource Center. Our driver is trained just like everybody else in the resource center, so he knows about all of the resources available in Polk County. So when people get on the bus and say, hey, I don't know where to go, I really need help with this, he helps to connect them to that service. It's far more than just a bus driver, and to me that is a shining example of innovation. And then I also want to talk about priorities. I know that the committee is supposed to make their decision largely funded on what is in the coordinated plan. And the coordinated plan, the number one priority is to maintain existing services, in addition to many other things that our grant also supports. But I also want to take it one step back as well. This funding that comes from ODOT, the Special Transportation Fund, the main priority of these dollars is to support folks who are seniors or people that have disabilities. And when you're looking at Falls City and there's a disproportionately higher number of people with seniors and individuals with disabilities, but they have no services and no connection to services, how can you dismiss that? So, thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Oh, thank you. At this time, this is a real dilemma in some respects, but one of the things, Falls City is just one of many cities in our district that we don't serve, and many of those have the same problems that you've mentioned that are apparent in Falls City. We actually have areas in the urban area that is not funded by the STF fund, but funded by property taxes in the transit district that do not have service, and we're looking at ways to cover these. As I mentioned earlier in this meeting, we're 191 days from having Saturday service here in Salem. That would be funded by the State Transportation Improvement Fund, which is a new fund, and it's been I've been on the board almost 10 years, and we have not had Saturday service. It went away just before I came on the board. In fact, several board directors resigned because we lost Saturday service. I'm excited about the Saturday service. I think there is a need for service to Falls City. I think there is a need for service to cities like St. Paul, Jefferson, Scioto. They have some of the same problems that you have. I know Falls City is a little more isolated because it's a dead-end road going out there. You don't go beyond Falls City unless you want to go to Black Rock. I was up there a few months ago, had lunch at the bakery, and enjoyed it. But it is a dilemma, and at this time, I'm going to, yes, Director Thompson.
I have a question for Ted. When is this due?
So the deadline to submit to ODOT is March 15th, and I don't believe that is negotiable. We do have our regional transit coordinator here from ODOT, Arla Miller.
It's March 15th, right? That's up.
Is there any flexibility there?
We can give a 2 weeks extension on that, and then that would be the latest we could do. Otherwise, it will not be able to be executed by July 1st.
Okay.
Does that fall with our next board meeting?
Our next board meeting is 4 weeks from tonight, March 28th.
This is, oh, yeah.
So the 15th, so that would
Leave 1 day.
leave 1 day. A couple of questions. Alan, when the STIF funding comes in, do we receive everything for Polk and Marion counties?
Yes.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
Well, no, I was not thinking of anything particular. It's that I have been around so long that I remember when Polk County actually put some of their Polk County money into public transportation. And so I was trying to think of creative ways, because I see this chart that says that 84% of the riders have Oregon Health Plan, and they're going to get medications, medical appointments, or groceries, which would probably qualify for using some of the OHP money. But we're in the midst of the CCO for this area not re-upping, and so I was just trying to think something creative, but I was not sure for sure what happens with the STIF funding.
Talk closer to the mic.
I wasn't sure what was happening with the STIF funding.
Director Lincoln.
I feel uncomfortable making this decision. There's a lot of this stuff I've just seen tonight and barely skimmed over. I had no idea this was going to be, a controversial decision. And if we had more time, I'd certainly propose we kind of go back and start again, lay the groundwork, say these are what our parameters are, this is what our rules are, this is how the process should go, and see if we come up with the same decision or not. I think process is important. It's important to have confidence in and integrity in a process that has integrity and transparency. And you ask people to put their time and energy into something, and they feel like they maybe haven't been heard, or the rules changed on them. Maybe they didn't, but that's the appearance. And I feel a lot of sympathy, empathy for Falls City, and it's a wonderful program, but I also see we've got some constraints, and maybe there's some other solution like Director Kelly suggested, but I just wish we had a little more time that we could go back and say, okay, well, let's look at this again, and here's how we interpret the strategic plan, and here's what our limits are on our funding, and here's the impact that it will have. Okay, now would you make the same decision? So I just feel this is too big a hairball right now to tease apart tonight.
Would you like to make a motion that we postpone this until the March meeting?
That would give us one day then.
Could I make a comment on top of that? Could we have another meeting added to our work session? Or is that too close of a time frame?
So if the board decides to extend this, then what we will do is we will re-engage the advisory committee, and we will also have it on your work session to discuss. And then bring a new recommendation at the next meeting.
And we need to uncancel the STF meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
It may have to be a different day. I don't know when was like next Tuesday, right?
Right. It was originally scheduled for March 5th, which is...
We will engage the advisory committee to relook at this, and we'll discuss tomorrow.
Okay.
And I think it would be, for me, I would like to see all of the applications as well as the advisory committee. And can I just say a comment? We don't have an advisory committee because we don't want to do the details. We have an advisory committee because it's required by law, and then we look at the details. And I did spend time reading. Kathy's been out of town, which is why she just got back into town. And realized that there are some hard feelings, but I think there's also some real miscommunication, because Cherriots is now the brand for things that the old Cherriots does not pay for with Cherriots dollars. That is money that we're tasked to spend outside and inside the urban growth boundary for particular projects. And because we've all mushed the Cherriots brand, it's not as clear a definition anymore. And so I think that is a difficult thing to do. But I will second Kathy's suggestion that we do it at one of our other meetings and spend some more time on this.
Yeah, I would appreciate more time on that too.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Then?
Yeah, I guess the motion is to postpone the decision on this until after the STF committee can meet again, and we can go over the process one more time.
Okay.
I second that.
Moved and second. Any discussion?
I just have one question. I was looking at the March 15 deadline here before I heard about 2-week extension. And I thought, and I'm hearing from Falls City that simply want us to delay the vote. And would a delay keep us from making that March 15 deadline? Then I'm told maybe we'll have another 2 weeks. Is that a guarantee we'd have another 2 weeks, or just maybe?
Yes.
Yes.
Not.
then, oh, okay.
We're glad you're here.
Then I'm inclined to give as much time as necessary to see what if anything, can be done.
Okay. Other comments?
I just think that during that time, we also should think outside the box on how this can be supported and funded. If in fact we can't support it financially. There's some creative ways that I can see that this could go forward.
We can discuss that at the work session.
Yes. Okay.
Sounds good.
Are we ready for a vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So at least the process worked that you did delay this. It's not that we're not listening to you and not that we have empathy, it's just that we don't have enough dollars in our bank account to pay for it right now.
Just so it gets on the record, on behalf of the commissioners and all of Polk County, thank you guys for listening. You blew away my expectations of being heard today. I really appreciate this board and the consideration. And if there's anything that we can provide as a partnership and a community at your next meeting or be part of that discussion, we're happy to. And again, thank you for the opportunity to speak and thank you for listening.
Thank you for stepping up.
Thank you, and thank you all for being civil. Sometimes we have people come in and they're not very civil.
Just don't read our drafts.
Okay. Something, just speaking, continuing thoughts from Director Evans, the county might be looking at ways, maybe you can dig up a few dollars. You know, we may have to get nickels and dimes out of other sources to pay for this. I mean, we're
up to over $20,000 cash put in just extending the program from November to now, and we're committed as a county to continue the service in Falls City through June 30th. That was our hope, is to have funding from y'all on July 1. So the county has a lot more skin in the game than the application allowed us to put in, but we have always been there and will continue to be there.
Well, maybe there's some money to keep it going. I mean, not all of it, but you know, if we can piecemeal it together. And we'll be looking at.
Appreciate that.
Yes. Yes.
One other thing, and I can't remember who said it. Can you give me your card before you leave tonight?
My credit card? That's really appropriate.
Yes. That's how we're going to pay for it.
That's one way to pay for it. Everybody cough it up. Yes, I will.
Okay. Someone said something about a Marion County, not a Marion County entity, not being sympathetic to something in Polk County. We serve Polk County. We serve Polk County both with our fixed route service and through the fact that we are, through contractual arrangements, provide the regional transportation out in Polk County. So we do not consider ourselves a Marion County entity. We are a special district that covers both counties, and then we contract and serve the other places. So just a clarification, we're not Marion County.
That was me, actually, and I think what I said, and maybe it didn't come out correctly, was that I was happy to, I guess, a primarily Marion County entity interested in the opportunity gap for our youth in Polk County. And I do recognize, although the Cherriots thing did throw me off a bit, I learned something new tonight, that it's actually Cherriots. I didn't realize that.
Well, it's actually sort of the CARTS organization, but it's been rebranded because people got confused and then.
Right, and so I thought CARTS was separate, so but what I meant is that I was happy to, because I'll be honest with you, because we don't have an active 501c3 in Falls City, it's very difficult to get grant funding. And because we're so far away, we can't get funding from Nike. We can't get, so when people take an interest in Polk County, whether it's $1,000 donated or $500 donated or $20,000, it means a lot to me, because I've been turned away on more than one occasion from entities in Marion and even, Polk County that isn't rural, because we're so rural. So I hope that clears up, because I would never mean it that way.
I just wanted to make sure people are going to get.
Director Thompson?
I just want to clarify that we do about 25,000 rides a quarter in Polk County every year, so it's 25,000 a quarter.
That's on
And they'll be on a report later today,
That's
yes.
on the regional service.
Yes, on the regional
But we
service.
provide rides over to West Salem too, which is in.
Well, that's true. So we provide a lot more than 25,000.
Okay, let's, thank you very much, and we'll move on to the next item, resolution number 2019-01, amending the fiscal year 2019 adopted budget. And I'll call on our general manager to introduce that topic.
All right, let me get myself together. If I'd ask Al McCoy, our Director of Finance, to come forward, please.
Good evening, President Krebs and members of the board. The issue before us on agenda item I3 is, shall the board adopt resolution number 2019-01
Excuse me.
to amend the FY 18-19 budget that was adopted by resolution number 2018-06
Hey, Al.
on June
Front of the-
28th, 2018.
Thank you.
Is that better? At the time in preparation of the adoption of our current year FY19 budget, House Bill 2017 had been passed, creating the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, or the STIF. However, the regulations and details of the program implementation had not been finalized at that time, and estimates of revenues generated were in the very early stages. Due to these unknowns, staff elected to wait until the district had a clearer picture of the regulations and how funding would be distributed to the qualified entities, both in district and out of district. So after attending ODOT training and with guidance from our executive leadership team, staff put together detailed plans for use of the STIF monies. The STIF plan was approved by the STIF Advisory Committee on October the 15th, 2018, and by the board on October the 25th, 2018, in resolution number 2018-9. The district will need new appropriation authority from the board to incorporate these funds and expenditures into our adopted budget. And so essentially this motion before you today is to adopt a supplemental budget request that will incorporate year one of the approved three-year STIF plan. Oregon Budget Law, ORS 294-471, allows for the adjustment of fund expenditures equal to 10% or less of each fund to be adopted at a regularly scheduled meeting of the governing body, and that is the case with this proposal. It is less than 10% of each fund. The district did publish a public notice, which is required also. That was on February the 21st in the Statesman Journal, and prior to that we had posted on our website. In your packet, you will also see the following, the tables that follow have the detailed breakout of how we will add the appropriations to the current year budget. You will note that there is a italicized line reserved for future expenditures in the table. That line item cannot be appropriated per Oregon budget law, but it is shown for the purposes of balancing our budget. And if future conditions, plans, or any unanticipated costs should arise, we will come back to the board and request the use of these STIF reserve funds. So the financial impact of this is that the proposed resolution will add a total of $2,739,000 in resources to the FY 2018-19 budget from STIF program. Of these resources, $1,055,000 will be appropriated into 3 funds, as you see here in the table, and 3 organizational units. We recommend that the proposed supplemental budget be approved to amend the adopted 2018-19 budget for STIF plan resources and expenditures.
So are there any comments or questions? Director Bush?
So this money that's coming from the House Bill 2017, we are using towards expanding our service, example, Saturday, late evening, yes?
Correct.
Okay, and the funds go towards our operations, towards training, towards bus drivers,
Yes,
et cetera?
that's correct.
Okay.
For FY19, it's startup cost to get the drivers hired, trained, maintenance staff, extra staff that's needed, and customer service positions that will also be required as we extend our hours.
And we've had a hiring fair for that, right? Career fair?
That's correct.
Okay. One other question, the buses, we have enough buses for this year, or we've already added buses for that project?
We have, in the first year of the plan, we do have money set aside towards one bus for regional service expansion.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? We ready for a motion? Director Lincoln?
I move that the board adopt Resolution 2019-01 to amend the fiscal year 2018-19 budget that was adopted by Resolution 2018-6 on June 28, 2018, and authorize a supplemental budget totaling $2,739,000 for funding to be received from the statewide Transportation Improvement Fund. Of this amount, $1,055,000 will be appropriated by expenditure and fund as detailed in this memo. The remaining $1,684,000 constitutes the STIF resources reserved for future expenditure.
Second. Been moved and second. Any comments? All in favor signify by saying, comment?
We were just shuffling our papers because we heard 2019-01 and the last one was an ordinance and this is a resolution. Okay, we're good.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I caught that too. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we'll move on to item 4, which is the approval of the health insurance broker services contract.
And I'll ask Paula Dixon to come up and present the staff report.
Good evening, President Krebs and members of the board. The issue before you tonight is, shall the district enter into an agreement with Parker, Smith & Feek to provide broker services for the district's health care insurance? The district contracts for broker services to assist with health care and other benefits, and the assistance they provide includes analysis, recommendation, marketing, negotiation, and placement of insurance, assistance with employee communications. They act as a liaison and an advocate for the agency in resolving vendor issues, and they provide periodic aggregate reports on how the insurance is being used. The health care services included in this contract are medical, dental, vision, basic life, accidental death and dismemberment, long-term disability, voluntary life, the employee assistance program, and our wellness program. In response to our request for proposal, the district received 7 responses. 3 proposers were invited to interview to present their proposals and respond to questions. Parker, Smith & Feek were selected as the proposer who most closely met the requirements of the district for the proposal. And the contract with the broker will be for 2 years, and then there are 3 one-year renewal options. The cost for year 1 and 2 are $28,500 for a subtotal of $57,000. And the proposal includes costs for years 3, 4, and 5, which would be a 5-year contract total of $145,965,000. And staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Parker, Smith & Feek to provide benefits, brokerage, and consulting services for our health care.
Do we have any questions? Director Bush?
Yeah, I was just wondering, how did this company shine? What made them different than the rest of them?
This company has had some innovative ideas that the other companies didn't have. They have, for example, a portal that employees can sign up for their benefits for to get rid of the paper applications that we have to do, and it goes directly in. Good ideas for marketing. And we've actually worked with some of the principals before, and they are very helpful when we're having issues with the healthcare. Like with, in this case, it's Regents. If we're having challenges, they will step in and advocate for us. And that's what we are looking for, is some of those extra services.
Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
And I do have a question. When they're talking about medical, they look for a full coverage of everything that is legal in the state of Oregon, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
And this is for our represented and unrepresented employees?
That's correct.
Okay.
Guess we're ready for a question now. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Or we needed a motion first.
I was
better have a motion.
I'll read it.
I thought I was getting old and didn't hear it.
What are we saying yes to? I move that the board authorize the general manager to execute a 2-year contract with 3 one-year renewal options with Parker, Smith, and Feek to provide benefits, brokerage, and consulting services for a total cost of $145,965.
Second.
Moved and second. Now we'll go. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and motion carries.
Thank you.
Now we're into reports, and I'll call on our general manager to introduce the first report on trip choice.
Right, I ask Roxanne Baltz to please come forward.
Good evening, President Krebs, members of the board. I'm here to present the second quarter report for the Trip Choice program. As I mentioned last quarter, we're presenting our reports now based on our work plan outcomes, which were agreed upon between us and the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments and ODOT. And the first outcome is awareness and understanding, and so that includes our employer outreach that falls into this category. So we either met in person with or had phone conversations with the companies that are listed here. Amazon, we know they'll be hiring in the summer of 2019. At least that's what they've told us so far. And so we'll get in touch with them a little bit closer to their hiring date to work with them. Although we have had a number of conversations already about bus turnaround and siting and bus stops and a number of other things already with their folks. We've talked with Dalkey. We will follow up in spring during their high peak hiring season. We've talked with Oregon Fruit Company. There's limited interest with their employees currently. We talked with Courthouse Fitness, exploring employee options for their commute trips. And then with Manpower. And Manpower is a temporary agency, and they are one of our current bus pass clients. They work with their managers will supply employees for one particular employer, Kettle Foods, for example, and then that manager has coordinated with us to buy bus passes for the temporary employees that go out there as an incentive for people to work for Manpower. And so we have tools and resources that I've talked about that we offer to the employers. Our bus pass program, obviously, the ride matching tools that we have, transit route information, we offer them outreach events, and of course, all the commuter incentives that they can offer or that we can offer. We also do community outreach. We talk about this every quarter, everything we've done. We went to the Woodburn Safety Fair because Woodburn is certainly part of our region. That was a wonderful opportunity for us to do some bike helmet giveaways. We worked with the fire department there on that. So we had a lot of young people that didn't have bicycle helmets. And then we fitted the ones that, even kids that brought their helmets, we made sure that they fit properly. And of course, we always distribute regional transportation options information, safety tools. The Myers Pumpkin Run is something that happens in October at Myers School. We go out and give the kids little blinky lights and bike lights so that they can be safe when they're out trick-or-treating. Other activities include we continue to work on the WanderWalks maps. We're still evaluating whether we'll be able to build an app, a WanderWalks app. We did apply for a grant with ODOT, an innovation grant, and we didn't get it. So we're going to look and see if we can figure out a way to fund an app in other ways. We're talking with IT. We're looking at software, trying to decide, can we learn to write an app? Is that something our staff can do internally? So we'll continue working on that. We have been coordinating with the City of Salem on the Ride Salem bike share program. I was just recently appointed to the board for Ride Salem, so now I'll have a little bit more input in terms of the bike share program here in town. They're getting ready to pour some concrete pads, so we're getting pretty close to having the bike stations in. There should be between 4 and 6 of them, hopefully launching in the spring. And that is with Osborne Adventures, the City of Salem, and then Zagster. Let's see, as far as social media, we posted 15 times, that's 15 times during the last quarter. That includes posting videos highlighting events that we're attending, and posts encouraging people to wear their reflective gear, certainly the time of year. September, October, November, December is a time where we want people to wear reflective gear. Valley Vanpool's been consistent. We have 48 vans in Valley Vanpool supporting over 400 commuters. We continue to meet with other TO partners in the region, SMART and TriMet and Rogue Valley, to talk about ways that we can expand vanpooling up and down the I-5 corridor. For our student poster contest, our theme this year was World Car Free Day. We had 15 middle and high school students participating. There were about 400 posters submitted, and we had the judging yesterday, so stay tuned for some awesome-looking posters this year. I always like to share what happens with our database, and the database is in the process of being replaced. A new tool has been selected by ODOT. They'll be working with an organization called Ride Amigos. They've been in the business for about 10 years of ride matching, and the new tool looks amazing, so I'm excited about that. So in the future, the way we report the data may change. I'm not sure how they, what reports we'll be able to gather and what reports we'll put together, but we'll certainly talk about the amount of users we have every quarter. We'll stay consistent with that. The same with the total number of users that are in the database. These are always important numbers because without people in the database, we can't ride match. The Drive Less Challenge finished up in October. It was October 1st through the 15th. Statewide participation of 4,215 people, and then 795 of those people were from our region, from the Willamette Valley, so that's a good chunk of people participating. New participants statewide were 1,682, and 222 of those people came from the Willamette Valley. Overall, with the challenge, these are the statewide numbers. 720,000 about non-SOV miles were logged. These are trips that people took using bikes or carpool or vanpool. Obviously, 25,000 gallons, 24,000 gallons of gas were saved, and then 747 pounds of CO2 was avoided by keeping those cars off the road. Safety is another one of the outcomes that we are committed to. So staff participated in a project advisory committee with the City of Salem. We've been helping them develop a Safer Crossings program, and so once complete, the Safe Crossings program will allow community members to formally identify pedestrian safety needs, request projects to address those needs, and then they'll be able to easily see the criteria that's used to prioritize pedestrian safety projects and to track the project status. Something else that we do, bike outreach and education, we do actually work with the Northwest Hub. They've been a great partner, so I was thrilled to see the shuttle being approved for them, or the bus being approved for them. We distributed last quarter about 150 bike light sets, so that's a front light and a back light through the Northwest Hub, because we know the folks they're working with really need bike lights for their safety. And then, of course, the 100 blinky lights that went to the Myers Elementary School kids. In expanding markets, we have been working with the Salem for Refugees. We work with the travel trainers, the Cherriots travel trainers. We continue to attend the meetings with Salem for Refugees. In the last 3 years, about 250 refugees have resettled in Salem from all over the world. And so we work with organizations like Sparrow, which is a furniture, they refurbish furniture. We work with them so that they're teaching English classes, they're working with their employees and their folks, and we help them figure out how to get around town using transit or biking or connecting with the Northwest Hub, which they're just right next door to them. So we continue to build the rural outreach list based on Polk and Yamhill County businesses, and so we'll be doing more outreach more rurally. And I did make some notes about Mill City. I actually gave my card to the mayor of Mill City and said, let's talk about transportation options. So let's make sure that they understand the carpool vanpool matching program we have. And of course, we strive to have all our program offerings available to all the diverse communities that are in our region. Lastly, other program activities, we did participate in the COOP, which is the Cherriots continuity of operations. It was a tabletop exercise. Lots of Cherriots employees participated. We just want to make sure that if we do have some sort of an incident, a major incident, we have a contingency plan on how to keep running our business, and how to make sure that if people need rides, that at least the trip choice part of that, how do we provide that? And then lastly, Open Street Salem was recognized by Mayor Bennett, Chuck Bennett of Salem. He recognized the dedicated work of the 2018 Open Street Salem Planning Committee, and he awarded them with the Distinguished Service Award. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions you might have.
Do we have any questions? Director Kelly.
For our safety, do we have anything that we could remind people by having some ads on our buses? I have been very hesitant in this dark weather in the evenings in front of the Capitol, and people are not wearing anything light or anything flashy, and you can just barely see them. And although they think that you know, if they don't push the little button that flashes, you're not even inclined to sort of look at them anyway. I just think we need something to remind people to wear light, or wear light, you know, like one way or the other, a light that blinks or something light for clothes.
I know we do work with ODOT and STOT, which is STOT is the company that does that advertising. And ODOT actually has a media buy where they pay to have advertising on the sides of our buses through STOT, and they're often safety messages. But I can talk with them and make sure that we
it's really,
provide more feedback.
2 incidences, because I've been doing an evening hearing at the Capitol, and then there are people wandering around, and it's not well lit because of all of the construction that's going on, but it's happening other places too. And
we do participate in their Be Safe, Be Seen, but that tends to be in the darker months, and that tends to be October, November. So I'll speak with ODOT about that. Thank you.
Yes, Director Lincoln.
I'd also like to congratulate you and thank you for your participation in the Safe Routes to School Steering Committee. That's been moving right along with the school district and the COG, and I think Salem and Kaiser are coming together to fund a coordinator for the school district to try to get the educational component of Safe Routes to School going in this community, which is long past due.
Desperately
so
needed.
thank you for your support in that program too.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, Director Bush.
Well, they've said most of it. I wrote out a little thing for you. Your report is just great, and it just puts Cherriots in many spots in our community and in a very positive light, and all the work that Drive Less Connect and everything does. And congratulations on that service award. Yeah, and your work for emergency planning and aiding the refugees in the area will reach far beyond the UGB in our area, because it is world impacting. And thank you.
Well, thank you. I'll make sure I share that with my team.
Well, I always enjoy your reports. Thank you.
Thank you. I always enjoy doing them. Thank you.
Well, people don't realize that you put 2 people in the car, you take 1 car off the road. And that's a way of reducing traffic congestion.
If you share the cost, that's a 50% reduction in the cost right there. Just
That's
share
right.
the cost. Absolutely.
So,
thank you.
thank you. And our next one is the performance report for the second quarter.
I'll ask Jeremy Torstad to please come forward.
Good evening, President Krebs, members of the board. I'm here this evening to present the fiscal year 19 quarter 2 performance report covering the months of October through December of 2018 and comparing that data with October through December of 2017. We'll start with our changes by service. This is our first quarter that fully reflects changes that were made for the September service change. As a result of those changes, there was an increase to revenue hours per day of 3% and revenue miles of 3.3%. We had a slight decrease in boardings of 0.6%. Looking a little bit further into the boardings, this is our local average daily boardings by month. We can see that the yellow line fiscal year 18 is slightly behind our current fiscal year 19, so we have a slight, I take that back, I'm sorry, fiscal year 18, slightly above fiscal year 19. However, fiscal year 19, we are well above those of fiscal year 16 and fiscal year 17. Next, we'll have a look at our Cherriots regional system. Revenue hours per day were down 9.1%. Revenue miles per day were down 22.1%. Boardings per day were down 3.4%. These decreases are mostly due to the elimination of the Route 2X Ground Run Express in January 2018. This next slide will show our Cherriots regional services without including the 2X data. So these are the routes that are currently in operation. So we had increases for all three of our measures. Boardings per day were up 9.7%. Revenue miles per day were up 3.4%. And revenue hours per day were up 9.3%. For the revenue hour increases, to help with on-time performance in May of 2018, we increased our revenue hours for the 10X and the 20X. Next, we'll look at our Cherriots Shop and Ride. Boardings per day were up 10.6%. Revenue miles per day were up 19.2%. And our revenue hours per day were up 9.1%. Due to this being a on-demand or a demand response service, the increase in boardings directly correlates to the increase in revenue hours and revenue miles. Next, we'll look at our Cherriots Lift service. Boardings per day were up 2.9%. Revenue miles per day were up 4.4%. Revenue hours per day were up 5.8%. This also is a demand responsive service, so we see that same correlation with increases to revenue miles and revenue hours. Sorry. Next is totals by service. Our first look is at the Cherriots local service. These are our year-to-date totals comparing fiscal year 18 and fiscal year 19. For Cherriots local, we see an increase in revenue hours, an increase in revenue miles, and a slight decrease in boardings. Next, we'll look at our Cherriots regional service. We see decreases in all of three of our measures. And this is, again, due to the discontinuation of the Route 2X. Next, we'll look at our Cherriots Shop and Ride. We see increases across the board in revenue hours, revenue miles, and boardings. And the last of our year-to-date comparison is for Cherriots Lift. We see an increase in revenue hours, an increase in revenue miles, and a slight decrease in boardings. Next, we'll look at our changes by route. We see that this is our boardings per revenue hour by route. These are our corridor routes. The majority of our corridor routes are meeting our target of 20 boardings per hour. The top route, we see Route 13 with a nice increase, and that's due in part to being rerouted in September to be closer to Chemeketa Community College. Next, we'll look at our boardings per revenue hour for our coverage routes. We see that these routes are mostly holding steady compared to last quarter. Next, we look at our boardings per revenue hour for our regional express routes, and we see that the 1X and the 40X both have increased boardings from last year and are exceeding our target of 10 boardings per hour. And now we'll look at our boardings per revenue hour for our demand responsive service. We see that the Polk County Flex saw a decrease in boardings per hour, and this can be attributed partly to the change we made in September to the reservation window from 2 weeks in advance to up to 5 p.m. the day before. Other than that, all services are holding steady. And that concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready for the finance report for the second quarter.
I'll ask Al McCoy to please come forward.
Good evening, President Krebs and Board. I'm here to present the second quarter finance report for FY 18-19. This includes year-to-date numbers through the end of December 2018. The quarterly finance report provides information about how our budget plan is being implemented during the year, and it includes statements for three funds: our general fund, our transportation programs fund, and our capital project fund. We also show you the budget to actual comparisons for those funds. So if we start with, on page 107 in your packet, the slide represents the numbers that are on that page. You'll see that in the general fund, total revenues are 56% of the annual budget. If we look at the detail there, passenger fares are at 43% of total budget. That is under the 50% level that would be anticipated to be received by this time. The district has received 100% of the projected property taxes by the end of the second quarter, and this is a good thing. This is to be expected, as most of the property taxes are received in November when the taxpayers are taking advantage of that first due date where they get the most discount. The Oregon State in lieu payments are only 19% of budget because we've only, at the time the report was run, we'd only received the first quarter's payment from the state. We have since received the second quarter's. And a positive note, advertising continues to perform above the budgeted level at 83% of the annual budget. The total operating expenditures of the general fund are slightly under budget at 48% of total, and all divisions are at or below budget in their spending, ranging from a low of 43% to the high of 50% of the annual budget. The divisions are represented by these bars on the graph. You can see each division of the agency there, and also they are broken out on page 108 in your board packet. In the Transportation Programs Fund, our total fund expenditures are at 52% of total annual budget. The breakout of the Transportation Programs Fund is on page 109 and 110 in your packet. You'll see that there are two operations programs, Cherriots Lift and Cherriots Shop and Ride, that have expended more than half of their annual budget at 54% and 62% respectively. Cherriots Lift is slightly over due to an increased allocation of costs from the call center, which was not budgeted by staff. And Cherriots Shop and Ride is over budget because contracted transportation costs have exceeded budget each month. And it's been a very popular service. We've been providing more hours than we had originally projected. Slide 4 will show you that the operations, that's the operations in general. Division in the Transportation Fund is at 53%. The Transportation Development Department or Division is at 38% of their budget within that fund. On page 111 of your packet are the Capital Project Fund numbers, and you will see that revenues in the Capital Project Fund are 17% of the annual budget. They usually do lag expenditures until the district is reimbursed by the granting agency. The total capital project fund expenditures are 23% of the annual approved budget. The Kaiser Transit Center signalization project and several other smaller projects have begun to incur cost that will show up next quarter. However, there are projects that have been delayed until the next fiscal year, so we do anticipate some amount of underspending for the capital project fund at fiscal year end. At this time, are there any questions about the second quarter financial report?
Any questions? Director Bush?
I'm talking a lot tonight. Back to the Cherriots shop and ride. You said the call center costs were over what was expected?
The lift, Cherriots lift.
Oh, the lift, sorry.
Right, the allocation that we do between the services for, that use the call center, the allocation was misbudgeted, so we will be correcting that before the year end, but right now they're over just
Does that come out as a ding for us down the road?
Pardon?
Does that come out against us down the road, or?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. It's just internal, getting them into the right service.
In the right bucket?
Right.
Got it.
Part of that is, or it is because the services that we used to provide to NIMIT for those services no longer bear any cost because we don't do that. So we had to readjust the allocation and we missed it. So we're going to get that fixed before year end.
Okay. Thank you for that information. And one other question was the lag on the federal money, did that have any relation to the government being shut down?
It really didn't impact us, thank goodness, before they were able to resume. Primarily, we were fortunate that we had gotten a large reimbursement for the bus purchase in the final quarter of the previous year. Came in the first quarter of this year. So between that and the property tax revenues, we were doing
that's good to hear. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So what you're saying is right now we're physically sound.
We're doing well, yes.
Okay, that's what we want to hear. Not going to have any surprises in 3 months.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we're ready for the general manager's report.
I just have a couple of quick items. So I failed to mention it earlier when we were doing the bus donation. In addition to donating the bus, when you wouldn't believe how many bikes get left on the bus, and when they go through our lost and found process and that whole disposition process, and which includes checking with the police. I think last year we donated around 35 bikes to the Northwest Hub, so it's a good partner with us. And then I just would like to let you know and acknowledge and recognize staff for the work that happened on Monday and Wednesday this week with the snow. We activated our EOC on Monday and Wednesday. Folks were in early, people were pitching in, getting things cleared, and our buses did a darn good job. A couple of delays and a few buses chained, but we did an excellent job. I'd like to thank everyone who pitched in for that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. I'm going to keep mine brief this time. I attended a number of meetings, the board and work session, the Chamber of Commerce Forum. I went to 2 City Club meetings, the South Mill Creek Neighborhood Association and the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments annual meeting. And we met with Senator Schrader, and I also attended the Salem Police Foundation breakfast. So had quite a few things, but nothing that's really where I attended a meeting to give a report on. So with that, could I call on Director Evans?
I'm going to be brief because we were gone for 10 days during February, diving in Bonaire. And basically I met with one constituent in West Salem. I gave Peter Courtney a tour of the Capitol and had a chance to talk to him about, well, he wanted to go see the gold man. So he got to go see it. No one goes there this time of year, but he got to go with his family. And so I had a chance to talk a little bit about transit and his support. And then I attended the West Salem Business Association meeting today. And that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Kelly?
The work session, City Club meeting, the annual meeting for the Council of Governments, the Schrader meeting, and the board meeting. It's busy time for me, so I have also done some other things, and I was late tonight because we were doing a book giveaway for a family night at Bush School.
Oh, fun.
So I was not late, but I was worrying Linda.
Okay. Director Bush?
There was no area commission on transportation meeting.
Okay. Mine is brief too. I was ill for a few days and I had a week trip to Pennsylvania to meet my new grandson. So I was proud grandmama here. But I did make it to some city council meetings for Kaiser. I was at the February 11th Salem City Council meeting, and that was interesting. I helped out with our Southeast Kaiser Neighborhood Association, and I appreciate Directors Lincoln and Rogers taking my place in a couple of meetings that I wasn't able to be at. So,
Thank you. Director Thompson?
Well, I didn't do very much this last month. I do have one accomplishment. I finished my chemotherapy, and things seem to be going well. Anyway, I just did some of the major things that everyone else has done, plus the about 8 hours in the STF, the Special Transportation Fund Committee that we talked about for the whole meeting tonight. So I was involved in that, and that's about it.
Director Lincoln?
Well, I did all the major things that everyone else did too. But I also attended 2 meetings on the Kaiser Revitalization Plan about redoing River Road, which is interesting and difficult. Attended my neighborhood association meeting, board meeting, then the regular meeting, Salem City Club meeting, COG banquet. I went to the quarterly OMPOC meeting in Albany in their beautiful carousel, which is a gorgeous building. If you ever get to Albany, check it out because it is just beautiful. And the SCATS Policy Committee meeting on Tuesday. I'll fill you in more on that in a minute. Went to the Schrader meeting and attended the Kaiser Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Committee in Director Bush's place. The OMPOC meeting, which is the Oregon Municipal Planning Association Consortium, we talked about, not a whole lot relevant to buses, but the STIF plans. I did talk about the STIF plans that we have submitted for the state Transportation Improvement Fund money. There are 18 plans that have been submitted, and May or June we can expect to get the funds out for the first round of providers. So that's when we can expect our funds. They talked a little bit about the transits, their Federal Transit Association requirements for transit agencies to come up with transit safety plans. And most of the smaller transit agencies in the state are contracting or working with ODOT to come up with their plans. They're rather upset about that because they get money from ODOT for some of their planning stuff, but now there's going to have to go right back to ODOT to provide the safety plan. But the Salem Transit District is going to we're going to write our own plan. So we've got the capability to do it, and it gives us more flexibility to fit it within our district. Another interesting note from Lane Transit District, they're doing a mobility on demand project in Cottage Grove where they pick up people at their homes. You call and they'll pick you right up at your home. I'm not sure if they're just driving people around the city or if they actually get them to a bus that can take them into Eugene, but it's an experimental project, and it'd be interesting to see how that works and how it compares with our West Salem project. There's also a bill, we talked a little bit about legislation, there's a bill in the legislature to extend the West commuter rail service in Wilsonville down to Salem. I don't know if that's got any legs or what, but that was interesting.
Representative Greenlick introduces it every session.
Oh, he does? Oh, so probably not going to go anywhere.
He's helping.
And then the SCATS Policy Committee meeting was on Tuesday. We're continuing with the Regional Transportation System Plan project selection process, and that's the project, the local transportation projects that we're planning for the next 24 years. So there's quite a process of prioritizing those and fitting them, deciding which ones can be financed and which ones are just, we hope to get financed. More importantly, the next 4-year transportation improvement plan is being figured out now, that there's approximately $15 million in federal funds available for projects in the next 4 years, and those applications are due March 26th. And the COG staff person said, make sure if you have projects that haven't been finished from the last tip and you need some more money, those are going to be top of the list for the new tip. I don't think we have any in that category. And then we also talked about safe routes to school, and I mentioned earlier that our Trip Choice program is participated in that and will help support that coordinator for the safe routes to school and the education component. And that's about that.
Thank you. And Director Rogers?
Mine's not necessarily short, but I'll just get right into it. The regular board meeting and work session, of course, and got to 3 of my 4 neighborhood associations, and I got to talk to them about the countdown Saturday service and told them how many days was left. And keep, they're really excited about that. That's all I can tell you. I'm excited about it. The city had a Brown Road project open house at Scott School, so I went there to see, to make sure that Cherriots was part of the process. If they're going to close the road, which they are at some point, then we need to know about it. And I got an email from somebody in the city that mentioned our driver, Michael Robinson, was very proactive in making sure all parties were aware of the project. So it's a shout out to Michael. And they also note that they will extend an invitation for Cherriot personnel to attend the pre-construction meeting and coordinate through the construction process. Also, I was here with Congressman Schrader, a whole bunch of us in the room, and it was very interesting. It's the first time I had a chance to do that. And I think we all did well, those of us on the board who had a chance to do a little discussion with them. Also, McKay High School had a breakfast. They do this every year. The kids put it on for the extended neighborhood. So I set up a table and put some Cherriot brochures out there, as well as I printed out the new fairs coming up for the youth, since pretty much everyone there was associated in some way with youth. And I figured, got 200, maybe 250 people walking by. This might be a good time to start handing out brochures. And, the Mid-Valley COG annual dinner, which was very interesting. And lastly, Washington, D.C. coming up next month. I hope to bring back some interesting information. Who knows what I'll learn? I'm excited. That's it.
Thank you. Is there anything else for the good of the board or the agency? If not, I will remind people that 191 days until Saturday service starts, and we'll adjourn.